What can the average person do to protect themselves if like stuff does completely go wrong?
And I don't want to be alarmist by any means, right? My choice to leave the country is just as much personal as it is provocation, right? Yes, I think that the United States is headed for a very difficult decade or so in its future. I think financially and fiscally, we're headed for a challenge. I think when it comes to our geopolitical influence and our geopolitical um, leverage, we are heading for some very dark days. I think that we have shown the world that we don't really care about democracy and we don't really care about equality and we don't really care about all the things that we've been trying to espouse since the end of World War II. I think we've really started to show the world like, hey, we only just care about ourselves. We care about our economy, we care about our security, we care about our people. And all of you other people can kind of go to hell. I don't think there's anything wrong with the direction the United States is going. I just think that the direction that we're going in is going to make life more difficult before it makes life better again. So when I choose to leave the country, it's because I want my children to grow up in a place where they have ample opportunity. In the United States for the next 10 to 15 years, we're not going to have ample opportunity. We're going to be dealing with an environment where foreigners are less pro American, where the dollar has less value, where our goods are less easy to access, where foreign goods are more expensive, like where jobs are less. We're facing difficult times, where universities no longer freely have research grants, where politics bleeds into everything from business to education. That's what we're facing as we decide if that's going to be permanent or just temporary. I want my children to be somewhere else. And when you are an American citizen living abroad, you have incredible opportunities that you don't have when you're an American citizen living inside the United States. So that's why I want to move. That's why I want to leave the country. I want to give my children the most possible opportunity possible. And that's not going to happen if we live inside the continental United States.
There's a lot of people that will say like there's more opportunity than ever with technology and like the use of the phones and stuff. Like what are their blind spots that they're missing that you're seeing for the next decade or so?
That technology does not exist within borders. Technology is border ambivalent. You can go anywhere and have all of those opportunities. So why would you choose to limit your success and limit your opportunities to just what is digitally available to you? You can literally relocate yourself for just the summer. When your kids are out of school, you can relocate yourself to Mexico and you have the opportunity to learn a second language, one of the most widely spoken languages in the world. You have the opportunity to give your children fluency in Spanish just by going to Mexico for a summer. You're never going to get that off of an app that comes up on your phone, right? So that's just one simple example. Let's not even think about what happens when you start investing your US dollars in European fiscal markets. So as the American stock market goes up and down with changes in politics, the European stock market is much more stable. So if you're 70 years old and you're trying to make sure that your fixed income lasts, you probably don't want to be putting it into volatile stocks in the US market. You want to be putting it into something more stable. That there's all sorts of opportunities that people aren't considering if they limit themselves to only thinking about technology. Technology is what we call at CIA an enabler. It enables you to do other things. In and of itself, it is not a solution. It doesn't solve problems by itself. It helps make the solution of certain problems faster, easier, and more efficient. But at the end of the day, all it does is enable. It doesn't solve the problem on its own.
You used to hear like people say, well, you should have like 3 months worth of like food or something if like the world were to come crashing down. Like if you were to give the audience like a toolkit that they could just have a baseline fundamental thing that they're ready if something dramatic were to happen, what would it be?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I will say bold face to anybody out there that if you're going to try to hunker in place during a disaster, you're a fucking fool. And for all the people out there who are trying to teach people how to hunker down in place in the event of an emergency, you are also a fool. It doesn't matter how much food or how many bullets or how much water you've stored. It doesn't matter how much canned goods you have in your basement. If the worst actually happens, your surplus is going to be the thing that makes you a target of everybody else around you. The most powerful toolkit that you can have in the event of a real emergency is mobility. You want to be able to move. We have a concept at CIA and throughout all of elite services, military and otherwise, where we say you have to get off the X. You have to get off the X. Movement is your friend. So why would you have 200 pounds of tuna in your basement? You could have 10 pounds of tuna in a backpack, and you could literally move and nobody would ever know where your tuna supply is. So you would be able to stay under the radar. You would not be identified. You would not be targeted. You could move further and faster than anybody else who's trying to shelter in place. So for the toolkit that CIA gave us is really simple. You always want to have laced shoes, always. It sounds silly, but laced shoes make it so that rocks and glass and stones and hot metal don't get into your foot in the immediacy of a disaster. You always want to have a raincoat. Again, it sounds silly, but a raincoat is what keeps the clothes that you're wearing preserved. It keeps them dry. It also keeps the wind off you. It also keeps you insulated against the cold. You always want to have cash and some sort of credit card. So you want to have two options of how you actually carry out a transaction, because in a true disaster, cash is going to become king. But before you spend your cash, you're going to want to ride the credit wave as long as you can. You always want to have some sort of ID, preferably an ID that lets you cross international borders. So if you don't have a passport right now, get a fucking passport, so that if disaster strikes in the United States, you're literally a plane flight or a border crossing away from Canada or Mexico, where the disaster will hopefully be less. If you have a passport, a credit card, cash, laced shoes, and a raincoat, you've got everything you need to survive any disaster better than the person who tries to hide in their basement and shoot all the strangers who come knocking at the door.
Portugal became like this place that everybody wanted to move to a few years ago, and I've
Still
had
is.
people, yeah, I've had friends that lived there and then kind of came back. But like, where are some places that you've had your eye on that have more opportunity than the U.S.?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of places that have different opportunities. I want to make sure that I highlight that. It's not necessarily quantifiable more or less. For me, as a father with two kids that are my kids' ages, that's the lens I look through to quantify what's more or less. But on my short list of places that I look at for my family, I look at Costa Rica, I look at Croatia, I look at Portugal and Spain, just like so many other people. I always look at Switzerland, I look at New Zealand, I look at Australia, and I look at Singapore. I look at all of those countries as countries that are very viable options to rebuild a very stable life in a pro-American environment.